Welcome back to the Tech Coach Corner YouTube series presented by Dyknow. I'm Tiara Lustig, your host, and today I'm joined once again by Jorge Valenzuela, and we are talking about the inequities that remote learning has highlighted and spotlighted in K-12 education, what schools are doing to solution these, and how you can use SEL to really help students identify how they're feeling, what inequities exist for them, and how they can help to solution those along with your school. So it's a great conversation. I think there are a lot of actionable takeaways that you can take and use in your classroom to support inequities and promote social emotional learning. Before we jump into the episode, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to Dyknow's YouTube channel, as well as follow us on all of our social media channels so that you never miss any of the content that we're putting out. We have some really exciting new content coming out in the next few weeks, so be sure to look out for those. But other than that, let's jump into the episode. Welcome back to Tech Coach Corner, everyone. I'm Tiara Lustig, your host, and today I'm joined by Jorge Valenzuela. Jorge, would you mind giving a brief introduction to yourself before we jump in?
Yeah, I am an education coach, author, and advocate out of Virginia, but I'm all over the country and now also internationally, thanks to remote learning.
Remote learning has opened so many doors internationally for all of us. One thing that I would love to talk to you about today is you did a presentation for our Progressive Learning Conference on equity, SEL, and PBL, and I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into the topics of equity and SEL. Remote learning has really increased the awareness and some of the gaps in equity for both students and faculty. And I'd love for you to maybe shed some light on what are the inequities that you've noticed have kind of come to light with remote learning in this new age of education, and then how we can use SEL to maybe solution those inequities.
Gotcha. So, these are heavy lifts, right? And just, it's my take and my understanding, right? And so inequities have always, been there. And so inequities cause, disadvantages and trauma. However, what the pandemic did, in my opinion, is it spotlighted inequities in the home and in the digital divide, okay? Where it became there was such a spotlight on it and such a focus on it that it couldn't be ignored anymore. So let me give you an example. According to the World Food Program, 310 million children in 2019 were relying on their school for food, right? And so now that there is no school, where would all those kids go? And so schools had to immediately focus on drop-offs and on food pickups, right? In spite of still social distancing, wearing masks and all of that. So it was an inequity that was there, but because of the pandemic, it had to be addressed. Now, as far as technology goes, in rural areas and in low-income areas, we saw that, Wi-Fi was spotty, and many of the kids did not have the right devices, Wi-Fi, or the ability to connect on a daily basis, which caused schools to now, send home packets. So you see that? It was an inequity that it really couldn't, we could not ignore that. And so, yeah, that's what it did. It showed us, what we need to focus on. It was already there, but now it's like, hey, focus on that. And so I think that as a result of that, as schools have improved their infrastructure for remote learning and for technology in general, I think that we will always now have some days allocated to remote learning in the instructional year so that we're not caught off guard like that. I think that what remote learning was initially was an emergency response to the pandemic. Now I think it's here to stay.
Definitely. And I think it's proved to be a solution to lost days such as snow days and things like that, where now we can use remote learning to kind of enhance those days. How would you recommend schools maybe focus on SEL or use SEL to address these inequities, or maybe make help students feel a little more either comfortable or confident talking about these inequities with their faculty members?
Well, yeah. So yeah, I totally forgot that whole part about of the question, right? Because these are really heavy lifts. And so social emotional learning can be used by educators to help young people, and really all people, better understand their environment, themselves, so that they can self-manage themselves, other people, so that they can have good relationships, and just overall so they can make really good decisions. And so the thing that schools and educators, the thing that we already know, I'm not sure if the world knows this, but we know this, is that there's two things. We're at the front lines of whatever is happening or not happening in the home. Think about what I just said, what's happening or not happening in the home. We see them first thing in the morning, either in person or through remote learning. So we are getting all of that. Whatever that disposition, whatever that attitude, whatever that mindset, whatever those emotions are, we are, boom, like it's hitting us first. And so the thing that we know is that we're on the front lines of that, but we also know that our school and us as individual educators cannot solve all these inequities. But we can use remote learning to help our kids understand themselves and understand how they're showing up emotionally in all situations or in most situations, and how they're showing up emotionally with other people. And it helps us to embed that into the learning so that we can not just make a better student, but a better citizen and a better person.
Yeah, I think those are great tips. It's work in progress, and it's work that's not going to be solutioned overnight. But I think remote learning did shed light on a lot of disparities and allow us to use new and engaging tactics to maybe address those and help students learn in different environments that they might not be comfortable with. So thank you, George, for sharing that information, both on equity, SEL, and remote learning. Where can people find you if they want to engage with you further?
They can find me on Twitter and Instagram at George Does PBL, that is JORGE, and also on my website, lifelonglearningdefined.com.
Perfect. Well, we will link those so everyone can find you. And thank you, George, for being with us today.